Hello and welcome to Addis Matters, our show on Ethiopian current affairs with me, Begna Simesso. According to the Julian calendar, which Ethiopia officially follows, we are entering a new year, 2013. Happy Ethiopian New Year to all Ethiopians celebrating it at home and abroad. Founded in 1887, 135 years ago, the new flower, Addis Ababa, has been the center of Ethiopian statehood, both geographically and politically. The ethnic politics of the last 30 years seems to have mixed effect on the diverse metropolis of more than 5 million estimated residents. With continued heated debate of land grab and controversial social housing transfers, Addis Ababa is becoming the new battleground in Ethiopian politics. I have two guests, both natives of Addis. Tamrat Negera, former editor of the famous Amharic weekly Addis Nagar, who returned from exile in 2018, and founder of Warka Media, which is coming to airwaves soon, and Yonathan Tesfaye, former PR head of Samawi Party, and who has been in jail for 799 days. Thank you both for your time, views, and insights, and welcome to the show. The last week of August 2020, the opposition party Ethiopian Citizens for Social Justice, or IZEMA, publicized a report of land grab in Addis Ababa. According to the report, 210,000 meters square land was illegally appropriated in the capital with the alleged support of the city administration officials. Since then, the debate of land rights in one hand and land grab on the other is intensifying, and the issue puts city politics at the forefront of the national dialogue. Tamrat, if I may, let me start with you. For the last 30 years or so, the Ethiopian politics had been run down by ethnically based nationalism or ethnic federalism. In a country where majority of the population is rural, about 80%, how relevant is the tiny urban population?
Well, the question of land, as you framed it, did not only start with this ethnic federalism. The ethnic federalism was actually born out of the 1960s student revolution. The student revolution had two major currents inside of it. One current was strictly economic or class-based analysis of the Ethiopian state. The other second narrative within the same revolution was that the Ethiopian problem is basically ethnic question, or as they say, the question of nationalities. Then if you see the 17 years civil war that followed the student revolution, TPLF was leading those with the ethnic question. And the former Derg regime was leading those who actually believe in the class analysis of Ethiopian situation. But both groups, first of all, never accepted the market economic analysis. Both groups agreed that land should not be privatized. Basically, Derg was the one that confiscated land from private owners, and at the same time, urban housing was confiscated by the Derg. And then the government was the one, the highest renting houses, small urban houses, and including large houses, apartment buildings, was owned by the government. So when the TPLF led ethnic groups, which includes OLF, defeated Derg, they continued on the same philosophy of land being the property of the state.
All of them were communists, isn't it?
Both of them were communists. What followed and what led us to today is upon the land being the state, TPLF and OLF reimagined and redesigned Ethiopia according to ethnic lines. And that created a very discomfort reality for the government, because while 80% of the population is in the rural areas.
Yonathan, I will come to you. The battle for Addis had been intensifying in the recent years, in the last five years or so. 2015, when the master plan was revised, that was when the Oromo protest, or what Tamrat called Opidio protest, started. In 2016, we remember the Irrecha incident as a result of the down Wayane rally, and the 2018 road blockade outside of Addis is the one that brought change of the government in this country. The constitution obviously says the Oromia state has a special interest in Addis Ababa. What's the Oromo interest in Addis Ababa?
Well, it's hard to tell. I mean, since it's not particularly mentioned in the constitution or in any other proclamations what the interest of the Oromia regional state in Addis, but from different politicians, the Oromo political elite, you kind of have some sense of what they are talking about when they talk about special interest. But I don't think it's just the special interest these days that they're talking about. It's as well who owns the city. Addis come in this context that it belongs to the Oromo nation because it is in the midst of or in the middle of the state, the Oromia regional state. Not just that, but they go back historically some 150 years ago that Emperor Minilik pushed the farmers that used to be there, the natives, which is. So this kind of narratives come into the context that Addis Ababa belongs to the Oromo regional state or the Oromo people at large. But the limitation or the problem with this narrative is it starts the history of not only Addis Ababa but Ethiopia as a country not longer than 100 years ago. But Ethiopia in general has more than, I mean, as they state, usually in history we have more than 3,000 years. Yeah, but not just that, but it's a people that are
at least archaeologically proven more than 2,000 years.
Yes.
History.
For example, I recently went to this Washa Mikhail right
Addis,
at
outside Addis. Yeah.
Not even outside Addis.
Yeah, it's in Yeka.
Yeah, it's in Yeka sub-city.
Yeah.
So there is a rock-hewn church that was established back in 320 AD. So that tells you a little bit of how this used to be, how this city used to be, and including Yerar. But when you come right around 100 years ago, of course there were farmers, these ethnic groups, tribes, the Galan, the Eka, and, you know. But that doesn't mean that it all starts there, you know. So the narrative kind of messed up for the sake of power grab, to overthrow the Derg regime and then to control the power. These ethnic groups used this narrative to mobilize the, you know, this is sensational. The issue itself is sensational. So in general, Addis Ababa belongs to all Ethiopians. But this narrative that created the current federal structure kind of give these states the autonomy to control their own land, that the rest of the people outside of that region is like a second citizen or something like that. If I am Amhara or Tigray and if I go to Oromia, I won't be treated like, the perception is that I am kind of what is Mate immigrant, something like that.
Alien.
So that narrative messed up everything for the city and as well as for the country. So it's hard to even have a discussion unless we really have some consensus about the narrative itself, about the historical background of not just the city but the country as a whole.
Interesting. Tamrat, you had mentioned the Oromo protest and some of the leaders or so-called proponents of the protest articulated three major questions of the protest. One was it was the ownership or the question of Addis Ababa. There are groups of Oromo elites who claim that Addis Ababa or Finfinne belongs to the Oromos, and they need to have the upper say. And I think at the center of the recent development in relation to land grab and controversial social housing transfers is this sense of owning the city. The Constitution stately said more than 25 or so years ago, Oromia has a special interest. Shouldn't that be resolved? If we resolve that, don't you think we can resolve these issues of, whatever issues happening now and then?
So let's see what happened, what gave birth to the Opidio protest. TPLF, you remember, had all political and economic power. And when they came up with the master plan for Addis, which would have expanded Addis geographically into what was, previously Oromia, the Opidio elite opposed that idea, not because it hurts Oromo farmers. The number one enemy of Oromo farmers have always been Opidio itself. Number one, they sell the land, they relocate them without giving them appropriate money. And they don't sell it for another Oromo. They sell it for anyone in the market, Turkish, Arab, anyone. And who benefits from that? They do benefit because they have, because
isn't that a government policy, isn't it? Like,
of course, it's part of the cartel of what we call EPRDF. So when Opidio opposed the Addis master plan, they didn't oppose it because it was against Oromo farmers. They opposed it because the access to sell the land, to the new master plan would have defranchised Opidio elites. So they opposed it. They started the protest. This new elite, this Opidio-driven elite, organized around Opidio, these cadres are the ones now in charge of power, and they're dispersing the resources according to their interest. So now the problem is, again, land is not privatized, land is not available in the market because the state owns land. And the state is, again, we come back to the cadres, structured around ethnicity. You and I, or Yonathan, if we use our ethnic names properly and join accordingly ethnic parties, especially the ruling ethnic party, we would have a better access to land, power, and other economic accesses. So that's the main problem, again.
That's one way of looking at it. Yeah, interesting. I think, Yonathan, if I come to you, give us a bit of highlight on the reaction, the public reaction when this report came about in Addis and the response given by the government. I know that you're kind of supporter to the Prime Minister's government, and one of the criticisms that has been brought in the public sphere is he's losing Addis. Addis used to support him great deal. Like, we remember the rally in 2018, for instance. Once this report was published, there are lots of, at least so far as social media is concerned, there are lots of criticisms against his administration. Are you not concerned about his government and his reputation?
Quite frankly, I'm not concerned. Here the reason. The current report by itself cannot represent the general public support or disagreement with his administration for various reasons. One is the previous mayor, Engineer Takala Uma, has been accused of giving condos to farmers, but in the name of the farmers for the cadres, and
he admitted it, isn't it? Like, it's not even admittance. Actually, I should have given it to more.
Yeah, I should have done it.
Yeah. But the case is not about giving it to the farmers. The case was about giving their condos in the name of the farmers
In
for
the
the
name of the
cadres.
farmers to the cadres.
Yeah, that was a very sensitive issue. And as well, the land grab issue that he could be accounted for because he was
in charge of the city.
yeah, in
basically.
charge of the city, but didn't take major decisions. He didn't make anything, any effort. You know, you can argue. Arguably, that is an issue. But the point is, he has been removed, and there is a new mayor, Addis Ababa, and she gave a press release a couple of days ago, and she mentioned that there has been land grab, and of course, she also mentioned that there will be investigation if the houses were given to people who do not deserve it. So that was accepted by at least a significant number of people.
But, you know, what choice do they have? I mean, this report came about, and one thing they can do is either to deny it or to admit it, to accept,
Yeah, sure.
or to say we'll
Sure.
investigate. That's
Here-
you
here's
know, the
thing
easier way
about-
out.
Here's the thing about the mass, the
Yeah.
people. The people is not like the political elite. It doesn't have any agenda other than having served. So whether it's genuine or not, at least it's a good gesture that it will be investigated. We will have a housing plan. We will have serious actions taken about the land grab and things like that. So this, having said this, of course the public will be watching, and we'll be seeing if the action were taken or not, because it's already visible. You know, people coming and then putting. You know, the land grab is very visible. It's out there, so we will see what kind of action they will take. So that would tell you what the public are thinking or what the next step would be. But the point is, the Prime Minister is very, very unpredictable. Like I said, the mass doesn't have any political interest like the political elite. So it's like
You can trick
it's
the
like
public
no,
by
no,
coming out as a traffic
it's not
police
about
officer.
trick. It's a political gamble. This is a serious issue. It has a very consequential aspect to it. But at the same time, there are things that you should consider.
The way I see it, before the Prime Minister should be very, very much worried about his loss of support in the urban areas, especially in Addis Ababa. Because this urban elite and this urban, poor dwellers are the one that guaranteed him to power, not the Opidio protest. The Opidio protest was just only a catalyst. The final seal of, being in power came from the urban people. You need a serious, actual organization that will deliver on what he says. He's not delivering anything. When it comes to, he has built parks, renovated the palace. So what? We need
So
to.
you're saying
he didn't
he
change.
needs to be concerned about.
Oh, absolutely.
the
He
tone,
didn't
yeah.
change
Okay.
the ultimate political economic structure that he received.
I agree what you say. He's a very unpredictable politician, and one of the things that I really admire about this guy is the kind of emotional connection he has created with lots of people. When this report came about, some people that I met and some people that I've seen on social media were personally hurted, they're disappointed at him. They are not becoming
Because
supporters.
they saved.
But the connection he
how
has
they-
created with the populace is
But that's
amazing.
how
I mean,
emotions are not going to be braids, or they're not going to solve your housing problem.
but
Ultimately,
people vote in emotions, isn't
no,
it?
not only in
the
emotions,
masses.
in interest. People operate in interest. That the content of the contribution of emotion to interest, when you compare it to your economic interest, is not significant enough. Because tomorrow, unless he delivers for both the urban dwellers, poor and elite, and then this wild, fervently hungry, the new hungry hyenas of Oromo elites, he will be in serious trouble. Yes, for now, these two groups are antagonistic, and they're not seeing each other. Either the conflict between these groups, or ultimately one of the groups will unseat him, and it will be very dangerous even for the country. So my question, anyway, my point is, and to reiterate, he has to come up with a political and economic structure that will deliver. Yes, both groups will not be satisfied ultimately. You can't satisfy everyone. That's the reality of life. But you have to decrease the amount of disaffection on your politics and ultimately on the economy as well. Everybody is now in the city, as you have seen, mocking the the free bread initiative by the previous mayor, because what is, you can be born and raised in Addis and still, for 2-3 generations, you do not have access to housing. You do not have access to clean water. You do not, your access to power, electricity is, forget internet. Your basics are not covered. And how long are you going to continue this with a city that is growing every day? And then at the same time, other cities like Shashamane, Awasa, Nakamta, Hambo, that would have created spaces are being decimated and destroyed, and people are moving, Dreidawa, Harar. These are major cities we're talking about. These were major cities that would have competed, Nazareth, Bishoftu, you were born and raised there. These cities should have created opportunities for people in Addis to say, let's move over there. There is much more opportunity. No, actually what's happening is people are leaving the cities and coming to Addis. And this is going to explode at some time T. And the Prime Minister is just talking.
Sometimes we cannot see it. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, a single incident changes the attitude. And he is using that as a strategy.
Yeah,
he surprises the people.
We have seen him
some intense
as a traffic police, for instance.
Yeah, that has become an agenda.
That cannot. This is my point.
Yeah.
That
cannot solve the problem. I understand.
It cannot solve the problem. I'm not saying it solves the problem,
yeah,
but it will give him time to solve the problem, facing the criticism.
The problem with this kind of, you overestimate people like. He overestimates the power of PR. PR can get you as far as something.
No, he's not underestimating the PR. He has his own PR strategy.
I'm saying he is overestimating the power of PR. It's like, dating a girl and starting a marriage is a whole lot of different things. He's focused on dating. He's not focused on the marriage. That's the kind of analysis I would like to prefer. Building a marriage or starting a marriage requires an entire different kind of dedication, purpose, and focus. Pranking people on social media and all that. So what? After you get 20,000 likes, then what?
It gives you time.
To do what? Because in 2 years, he hasn't challenged any part of the constitution that created this problem. Yes, he might have created, recreated EPRDF, but structurally, as you just said, it is still not a one singular party.
But he did, Tommy. No. He acted like a president. He didn't even go to the parliament to get his ministries approved.
I'm not
he's
saying,
doing a little bit about, getting his way around the constitution.
But it's not only not enough. Structurally, we're talking about structural change, structural issues. The ruling party, the ethnic federalism, the issue of cities, and even the political economy of the entire country has not been confronted properly. And 2 years is more than enough to achieve any of this. At least, not everything, but to achieve something. Yes, you have achieved a certain kind of personality cult, but that cult, it could build him to, personally it could benefit him. But would he maintain power to achieve a certain end? No. He's just serving a certain individual achievement.
In his defense, though, I mean, he inherited this party, EPRDF, which was structured along ethnic lines, and he dismembered that.
Yes, no, it is still ethnically. It's
well,
not,
at least in terms of structure.
No,
I mean, it's
in terms of decision making, in
Yeah.
terms of power distribution, in terms of
still it's the
regional
Oromo
structure.
prosperity, the Amhara prosperity, of course. I mean, but that could be purely an approach, I mean, an organizational approach, so to speak, or even the states, the federal system operates that way. So, in a way, to a certain extent,
that's
we
a
can
good
understand.
point. I think,
Yeah,
Tommy,
isn't it?
there is a dynamism currently happening. Addis, I don't think it has that power it used to have for generations. Like back in the days, it used to be Shoah Manale. Like whoever controls Addis Ababa controls the whole country.
We are running out of time. I'd like to come back to the issue of Addis. The Oromo politics, the Oromo issue is no more a distant matter. I mean, when OLF used to lead the armed struggle, it's a distant matter. Not anymore. The 2018 road blockage affected Addis highly. Lack of milk, vegetables, and other consumables. Even the Jowar incident in October 2019 had affected the capital immensely. The Hachalu assassination was probably the biggest one. It brought the Oromo youth, it entered the city. I think my concluding question will be, what should be done like to have a sort of win-win situation for both Oromia and Addis going forward? Yonathan, you've been advocating for the center ground. Where is the center?
Yeah, sure. I always advocate about the center ground because the political landscape has been polarized for the last half a decade, probably. So there is a new generation of new thoughts, new ideological setups, and even understanding of the nation itself, Ethiopia. There is a different narrative to it. Some even don't want to be called Ethiopian these days. So that has been used by the political elite. In fact, it's the political elite that created that narrative that we have, and youth that is being mobilized by this narrative. So somehow we have to address this new dynamic problem. So you have to have some kind of comprehensive and an all-inclusive system set up, which is which kind of negotiates or kind of try to bring together the different perspectives of history and of the country itself, the view that you have about the country itself. So that will depend on not just leaning to the ethnic political ideology or leaning to the unionist ideology. You have to have something that kind of bring this perspective together. So I believe the middle ground is somewhere that he can play that role.
Tamrat.
I don't see a win-win situation because
one has to win against the other.
No, the reason is the Constitution did not give us a room to create a win-win situation. The current Constitution has put us in a condition where there is no win-win situation for both narratives. This is one of the area where I blame the current Prime Minister. He talks, but he doesn't understand about the recreating of the political economy, which includes partly changing the Constitution or even confronting the Constitution. Unless the groups, both groups, whoever they are, like the
unionist versus
or the ethnic nationalist or whatever, unless both groups feel significantly satisfied to some degree, the situation is not going to continue like this. He may not satisfy both of them, but he has to show some seriousness about political economy.
So you're proposing a drastic change, not sort of...
No, you can't. You can't massage the problem for how many longs?
I get that.
That's my question.
All right. Great. Last question to both of you. Addis is a very big city, and it's what happens in Addis affects not only Ethiopia but the region as well, and even Africa. It's the probably the third or the fourth largest diplomatic city in the world. What are the implications of situations like we've seen recently, be it the Hajaru incident or the Jawar incident, in the national politics and also in the African affairs and the country's international standing?
Let me add to say the first question, on the previous one, the Oromo politics. There is kind of, Oromo nationalist discourse is eating itself, because once Prime Minister Abiy came to power, they couldn't agree what to do about it. There is a significant portion of Oromo nationalist extremists which advocate that Prime Minister Abiy is not Oromo enough or is not advancing Oromo interest enough. Some even want still, they dare ask seceding Oromia. And at the same time, some ethnic, the illusion of this Oromo nationalism narrative is that it assumes all Oromo is the same. But actually we're seeing on the ground that there is a significant religious difference, there is a significant even ethnic difference within the Oromo. That has created a unique kind of tension. For instance, on the Shashamane and the Arsi regions, we've seen Oromo Christians, be it Orthodox or Protestant, being persecuted by Muslim extremists. So this internal division is going to destroy the very interest in politics of Oromo narrative within the future. The question is whether this destruction is going to come to destroy the nation itself, the entire Ethiopian situation.
Thank you for watching. Thank you both for your contribution, Tamrat Negera and Yonathan Tesfaye. Next time we'll be back with another topics and another guests. Until then, goodbye from me, Begna Simesso, and at Addis Matters, and happy Ethiopian New Year.